Hello everyone, welcome back to Dynamics 365 Finance and Operation. We're continuing our journey to configure the human resources module of D365. So we're going to finish off today with the HR sheet parameters, and then we'll continue to go towards how you configure the remaining pieces of the HR module in order for it to become very functional and in order for you to execute the information that you need to. Of course, things like from a process perspective, hiring and terminating an employee and whatnot. So let's get right into it. And this is the homepage. Of course, this is something that you've seen so many times. I always start out my videos with the homepage. And if this is the first time you're seeing this video, do make sure to go to the other ones because everything sort of ties down to what we have configured already in the system. So today we're going to talk about the last piece, which is the benefits management. Of course, benefits management is on its own module, so we're going to dig a little bit deeper into it when we get to it. But today we're just going to do at a high level what the parameters talk about and what parameters are required configuration. So if you go into human resources shared parameters right underneath the setup, we have quite a few tabs that we've talked about already, and today we're going to finish off with the benefits management. So the first thing that you want to configure in the system is which country these benefits are applicable to. So which country you are actually configuring the system. So in this case, most likely it's Canada for me because it's a Canadian sort of slash US legal entity. So it's a demo environment that I'm working with. So in this case, I would do just Canada for now. Cancellation reason code. So from a process perspective, I would also like to talk about these reason codes because we're going to talk a bit more about it in the following videos. So cancellation reason code is basically when you are, as an employee, from the HR perspective, you are canceling an employee's benefits plan. So whether that be when they're terminated or whether that be they want to opt out from a benefit plan. So when you're canceling the plan, then you have to select a reason code just for audit purposes. And for you to configure, for instance, if you want to do a configuration of reason codes, you can either left click here and then go into view details, or you can always go into human resources under the setup and there's the reason codes here. So that they're the same form, but we'll talk about this once we get to it. Same thing with enrollment reason code. So at any point, why do you want to enroll that employee into the system? Into the benefit plan. And here we can have multiple enrollment reason codes. And this is the information that your organization or your client will tell you. You can't simply make that up, but you can always recommend based on your experience and whatnot that you've seen and configured in other organizations. But this information is solely coming from your client. And everything we've configured so far, obviously, you have to ask your client. And that's what IT consulting is all about. Life event reason codes, if you're not familiar with the HR language and the verbiage that is being used or that gets used in that realm, then life event is basically any time you are either married. So if I'm an employee in this organization in the USMF and I am enrolled into a benefit plan called dental, for instance, then a life event would occur if I were to get married and I want my spouse to be enrolled into the same benefit plans, or if I have a child, for instance. So I want that child to be part of the benefit plans that I already am enrolled in and my spouse is already enrolled in. So that is called a life event. And for an HR manager to run a life event, just to see the processing of it, the process eligibility, then it needs to basically give a reason code why are they running this event. And then you can have multiple drop-down menus where you can select it from. So in here, we don't really have anything configured, but the examples that I've given you are very applicable to real-life scenarios. Rate change, and this talks about the rates of the benefit plans. So either the employee that I will be paying towards my benefit plan, or as an employer, so in my case, USMF is paying towards my benefit plan. At any point, the third-party vendor asks the organization that we are changing our rates that we offer you based on the inflation or based on some other circumstances. This is where the HR manager can run the rate change process and make it applicable to all benefit plans that are enrolled or employees that are enrolled into that benefit plan and be able to select this reason code. So otherwise, you can always go and not select these reason codes, but these are the default reason codes that you would select. That way, the HR manager doesn't really have to select every single time when they run this process. But it's obviously something that you can avoid. So if you leave it blank, then the system won't really prevent you from executing this task. But it's always good to have it. So you should always recommend your clients to select at least a default reason code, so it automatically is populated when you're executing that task. And the last piece is the reopening reason code. So in my case, for instance, if I wanted to opt out and then my HR manager canceled the benefit plan with the reason that I wanted to simply opt out because I already have a better insurance coverage, and at some point that I realized that, oh no, I don't have a better insurance coverage, or my employer might be the best way for me to go in and then simply ask them for a enrollment. This is where you would reopen the enrollment plan and then select the reason code. Why are you reopening it? You can have multiple reason codes to select from and simply enroll them into that benefit plan. So these are the defaulted values that you should configure. Not obviously they are mandatory, but something that you should always have from audit perspective. Moving on to the benefits annual salary. So if you were to turn this toggle button on, whatever eligibility rules that you have configured in the system, which we will talk about when we touch base on the benefits management module, then having this toggle button turned on would override that eligibility rule. So in this case, you need to have the annual salary created into the worker. And we'll see where that actually exists in the system. But the real relevance to this is when you want to run the benefit processing and when you're actually doing data migration. So from a real scenario perspective that I would like to share is when you configure the benefits management enrollment eligibility processing, and you are migrating legacy information into this new system, you will run into a lot of trouble just because the way the dates work within the system, the way the eligibility rules, it will create a big mess for you to clean up. So the best workaround is for you to enable this and then have all the workers assign an annual salary. So simply it overrides the eligibility rules. It creates a bit of a less work and less mess for you to clean up, and then you can enroll those employees into those benefit plans. Otherwise, you're going to have a really hard time going through it, and the client's going to get frustrated by actually cleaning up simply their mess. But at the same time, you should advise them what's the best approach. So this Boolean field, I feel, is most relevant when you're actually doing a data migration rather than having having no eligibility rules and then simply enrolling benefits for employees. And going into the payroll earning codes, not something that's applicable, to be honest. When you want to do a third-party integration, you don't really need to have this Boolean field turned on. Simply because when you're doing integration, you would be sending these earning codes and deductions anyway. So that'll be part of your design. So not something that I would want to use because this Boolean field doesn't really turn on the integration anyway. So it's just sitting there. I've never used it. New hire eligible. So this Boolean field has to do with when I hire an employee. So I simply, as an HR manager, somebody gets hired, I want to know that if they're eligible. So if my organization has allowed them to be eligible, which of course every organization would, you need the toggle button on. Otherwise, you're going to get a error from the system that the new hires are not allowed to be enrolled into a benefit plan. So once you have this toggle button turned on, then you simply give them a period where they can, a number of days that they are allowed to enroll themselves in. Otherwise, once they go off that period, they're no longer allowed to enroll themselves in. So normally 30 days is what I've seen so far. Default pay frequency, very important. So you should have this, and I will recommend you to have a default pay frequency. In my organizations that I have configured, usually semi-monthly and bi-weekly are very frequent. This plays a crucial role in the eligibility processing as well. So if you leave this blank, you will not be able to enroll an employee into a benefit plan, and the system will always give you an error saying that you haven't defined a pay frequency of an employee. So rather have it as a default if it's universal for across all employees, but a default pay frequency is mandatory field, sort of mandatory in quotation to run the run the processing of an employee for benefit plans. Last piece is life events enabled. So this is same thing with the life event reason code that we talked about. If you don't have this toggle button on, then nobody who gets married or has a child or passes away can be terminated out of or opt out of the benefit plan. So you need this toggle button turned on, of course, for you to run that life event processing. Hide legacy benefit forms. So if you want to simply hide the benefits of previous years, then you can have this toggle button turned on. But as of now, it's always good to have it turned off because you don't want to hide that. You need to have, from HR perspective, you need to have the legacy pieces of your employee and what they were enrolled in, just for a compare and contrast perspective. And going into the benefits verification, this is very applicable to when you actually go into the employee self-service workspace and you're just about to confirm your plan. So this is the prompt that will show up. So it's a text field and you can basically type in anything. And that's from the HR manager's perspective, that do you want to proceed with this action? And then after that, once they say yes, you can now go back and then change your benefit plan. So this is where that sort of informational box comes in handy. And the last piece is the number of days for open enrollment options. So this is applicable to all employees, existing employees or new employees. You could say not new employees are actually coming down here, but the existing employees who have to enroll themselves into a benefit plan again the following year. So if your organization actually likes to enroll employees into benefit plans every year, just like my organization does, then you have only 30 days to actually enroll yourself into the plan. Otherwise, we can configure the system to simply carry over the previous plans. And that's something that we'll talk about in benefits management. So with that, I think I kind of give you a big overview on all these fields that are applicable for a benefits management from a parameters perspective. And we'll go and touch base on the other configuration that's required in our next video.